Well, hello everybody and welcome back to another live stream and a fresh week here in the markets. How's everybody doing? I see you guys are already showing up. There's lots of people already in the chat, so you guys are coming at it strong today after Easter Sunday, right back into it on a Monday. So hello and welcome everybody. Good to see so many people tuned in. We're already at like over 100 people in, what is that, like a minute of being live, so that's really cool. What's up, you guys? Hope everyone's doing well. We had for those of you guys who celebrate Easter, hope you had a nice Easter this weekend. I definitely spent some time with some family. We're outside playing baseball and just enjoying some of the nice weather that we got this weekend, which is really, really cool and was a lot of fun. So it's good to take those sort of breaks and get away from the charts for a little bit of time. But we are back here and ready to go. We've got some things happening. The US dollar is dropping today, so we need to talk about that, see what's going on there. I'm not too sure, honestly myself, so we're going to figure that out together. And we're going to figure out what it potentially means for US dollar this week and maybe if there are any trade setups talking about it here on the live. So hello, Theo, Lohan, Khalid, Henry, Rao, Singh, Lena, Thomas, maybe, Rustenberg, TFX, Jonathan, Ben, happy day. Good to see everyone here. Vashish, thank you for showing up. Hey, Dade. Welcome to everybody, and thanks moderators for being here as usual. So cool. So I figured we could talk a little bit about the US dollar. We could talk a little bit about what's going on. So we'll jump into it and see what we can figure out. So this is the currency heat map that is available on my website. You go to a1trading.com, and then you just you can either go to just click currency heat map, or you can go to market analysis down to currency heat map. So we're looking at it here, and what we can see is that what this will show you is what is moving the most and what is not moving the most. So it looks like we have some strength on the Aussie today and the CAD today. So both of these currencies seem to be doing well. And then you have the weakest of the day seeming to be that US dollar. We also sort of have a weak euro today, but it is only really outperforming the US dollar as of today. So just some information there for you. So we have a weak US dollar and a weak euro and some strength coming in on these commodity currencies, the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar. So what we will do is we will then go look for maybe some ideas or some setups based on that in our analysis. Again, I find the currency heat map really helpful. Some of you guys might also use it off the website. Again, you can come to the site anytime you want to get it for free. But I use it just as a way to see sort of what's moving for the day. And if I'm looking for trade setups, maybe I can use this to find pullbacks on things that I like or to maybe just see how where everything is setting up for the day ahead. So again, the biggest winners today actually happen to be, we'll put W for winners and L for losers. We have some losses coming in or some pullbacks coming in on the US dollar, which was doing quite well the last several weeks. So we'll see how that one holds today. But starting out bearish, especially against that CAD and the Aussie and the New Zealand, all of which, also the pound, all of which the US dollar seems to be underperforming today. Also the yen, so we're gonna have to look at that as well. The yen, the dollar yen probably pulling back a little bit today. So let's jump over to the charts really quick. And really quick, actually, I was looking at the DXY before the stream went live. You can see here's a US dollar index sort of conglomerate, and we do have a little bit of a pullback coming in here. So the question is, for those of you guys out there, do you think the US dollar is bullish or bearish? Real quick, we'll get you guys into your feedback there. Chat in the box really quick. Let me know, bullish or bearish on the US dollar in general. We are seeing a pullback today. Do you think it's a pullback or do you think it's a reversal? Are you bullish or bearish on the US dollar? Let me know, and I'll read off some of you guys' comments here in just a second. Again, for those just joining me, I hope everyone had a nice weekend. Hope you spent some time with some family or did something relaxing. And for those of you guys who are hustling through the weekend, doing your back testing and stuff, I see you. That's awesome. That's what it takes to become, for me, definitely what it took to become sort of more knowledgeable in the markets is just tons and tons of back testing over the weekends and spending time just studying that stuff. All right, so a lot of bulls out there on the US dollar, some bears as well, but mostly bullish on the greenback there. So we'll take a look and see what we can find out about the US dollar here. So yes, the DXY is pulling back on the 200-day. We are above it. We've got some strength overall. I am also pretty much a bull on the US dollar. You can see we're tagging the 50 period moving average here on the 4-hour chart. Let's look at it from a daily perspective for just a moment. So we are above the 200 period moving average on the daily chart here. We pretty much broke through this previous high and then sort of just kind of kept going. So it does look like we could be due for a retracement. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a retracement back down to this previous sort of pivot high. So keep an eye on that. We could see some bearishness. It's probably due for a healthy pullback here, the US dollar that is, going into this week. So keep an eye on that. So now let's go look at some of the individual currencies against it. I mentioned euro dollar is sort of the most mixed sentiment one today. You can see that the euro dollar will drop it down to the 4-hour chart. The euro dollar seems to be pulling back pretty strong this morning here, and coming into a couple levels that I mentioned yesterday in my Sunday analysis, this zone here and this zone here. I'll be watching to see if price can pop up into some of those areas for a potential short if we can get a little bit more of a pullback on that DXY or the US dollar. I'd probably be interested in looking for short setups this week. Of course, if I take any trades, I will share those inside of our private community. I share all of my trades with entries, exits, and full breakdowns of my trades. If you have any interest in that, that is a service that I offer inside of the private group, and you can find information. There's a link down below in the description, and there's also a promo code for those of you guys who support the stream. So use that, and you'll get a discount to join the group if you want to. So anyways, that's what I'll be looking for this week on euro dollar. So I'm not quite there, but it is looking pretty close to a level that I am interested, which is this area here. Again, gonna have to do a little bit more research in terms of what the US dollar is doing today. Maybe we can talk about that. What is the US? Is there news today for the US dollar? Let's just really quick. Let's see. U.S. economy created the most jobs in 7 months in March. Payrolls report showed. The president unveiled. Yes. So there's this sort of push for a big potential stimulus, which usually stimulus is sort of an idea of, okay, well, that means printing money. Printing money is usually considered bearish. So there is sort of that back and forth. I know that's sort of in talks right now where they're talking about maybe printing more money and doing some sort of longer term stimulus, which would in theory push the US dollar down. So maybe that's scaring investors a little bit on the US dollar. We'll see how that develops this week. I'm sure that there's plenty of news. Speaking of news, why don't we do a little bit of a look ahead? We'll go to forexfactory.com, and this is how I like to just see what's on the week ahead. So we'll just go to this week, and so we do have, for those of you guys who are watching the Australian dollar, we have a big one here. This is the rate statement. So the Australian chief of finance, whatever they call it, everybody has their sort of nicknames. Is it chief or so their head of their Reserve Bank of Australia. He's likely going to be talking about, or he is going to be talking about rates and talking about sort of the outlook for the Australian economy and what they think they may do in terms of the interest rate. Now, interest rates, in case you are not super familiar with the fundamentals, if you have an interest rate spike or rate hike, right, that means the currency or the economy offers a higher interest rate, that is considered bullish for the currency. Now, I think he's probably, based on what people are thinking, he's probably just going to say that interest rates, he expects to keep them the same for now, keep them low until unemployment drops to good, healthy levels. And then they'll talk about rate hikes. And I believe Australia has talked about doing it in 2024. So these are just sort of tabs or fundamentals to keep an eye on for this week. You might not care about this if you're just a short-term technical trader, but for me, as sort of a swing trader, keeping an eye on the rumors and the stuff that's going on is a big deal. So FOMC meeting minutes, this also has the potential to really move markets this week. So this is on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. You might have to convert that to your time, but this could be a fairly market moving event if there's anything said that sort of shakes investors. All right, so also We have Powell speaking, and anytime Powell speaks, that can be a big mover as well. And then finally on Friday, we do have CAD unemployment. Now, this is going to be a big one for anybody trading the Canadian currency this week, because if numbers are better than expected, then it could very drastically move the Canadian dollar into the bullish direction, and vice versa. If they're less than expected, if there's less new jobs created, that could be bearish. So keep an eye on that for those of you guys who are watching those respective currencies. And yeah, I just figured I like to just keep an eye on that just to see what's going on. Yeah, so euro dollar really interesting here coming into this week. I do think that there are some pullback plays coming into play. I think that the US dollar is due for one. You can see the euro, for example, has just been on a rip to the downside. So as we pull back, I think this is probably pretty reasonable. Watching to see how this trend line holds is going to be a big one for the euro dollar, but usually or most likely, I think this is mostly just good pullback opportunities. That's my opinion. Please remember, this is not financial advice. This is just my thoughts and opinions in the market. Please do with it as you will, but please remember, trading is hard. It is not easy money, and I'm not here to give you sort of easy signals. If only it was that easy. I heard a great saying, you guys. Consistent profits require consistent work. I heard that and I was like, you know what? I've never really thought about that, out loud, but that is so true. Consistent profits in the market require consistent work. Everybody thinks that trading, you just like get to a point where you just know where everything's going and you're just like this incredible trader. And the reality is just not the case. Like, you have to continue to put in the work all the time. You don't just get to make money for free, even though that's what all the beachside lifestyle traders out there try and tell you, but it's just not the case. Anyways, when we're looking here at pound dollar did something real interesting here to start off the week. It basically held this previous retest and just bounced off. And to me, this is very bullish technically for the pound dollar here going into this week. I think that the pound dollar has potential to make its way up to this previous level. Now that we've broken and cleared this zone, I think this is now support, as I just marked it in green, and I think we are probably due to head back to this 1.14 level, especially with this weakness on the US dollar right now. Seeing a little bit of weakness on the US dollar is what I think could get us up to that next level. So if we just take a look at pound US dollar, if the US dollar stays weak this week, play on words, then I think the pound dollar could be headed back to 1.14. So keep an eye on that. I think that's likely in the books for this week. So we'll see if that can happen. But again, it's going to just rely on what happens with the US dollar. And with that, like I said, the FOMC meeting minutes, that could be a big thing. This right here, like I said, listening to what Powell has to say has the potential to really move the US dollar. But any sort of bearish thesis, any sort of bearish conversations or market moving stuff that could cause further pullback on the US dollar probably could shoot pound dollar up to this 1.14 level. So that is the area to watch this week in my view. If you're a seller, then you might be watching that area, but for me, I think, just from a technical view, I would say, if anything, I think the pound dollar is more of a bullish uptrend buy than any sort of shorting opportunity. That's just my opinion. I'm not really taking trades on the pound dollar right now because I am mostly bullish on both of these currencies, the pound and the US dollar. A quick reasoning why is because if we look at GBP, USD, two of the main factors right now, we could look at vaccine rollouts. I believe in the UK, they're talking about opening things up. Is it April 14th? I think more shops and more stores and things are being opened up, which is good for GDP. The vaccine rollout is arguably one of the better plans when it comes to the UK compared to other places. So that is a bullish thing. Same in the US. The US has been fairly good about it recently. We've been arguably doing a better job there. Now, regardless of what you think about the pandemic or what you have an opinion on the vaccine, we don't care about that. We care about how markets perceive it and what it does to the economy. Because what this does is a better vaccine rollout roughly equates to a more growing GDP. Because if more people are back out there doing work, doing things in the world, starting businesses, growing businesses, employing people, all of that stuff comes into play when you have a normal functioning society, which we can hopefully all get back to soon. Now, good vaccine rollout means potentially growing GDP, which we're actually already seeing in both of these. So I'm pretty bullish on both the pound and the dollar. So I probably wouldn't want to trade these against each other. As I mentioned yesterday in my Sunday special or Sunday analysis, I mentioned that I prefer to trade something like euro dollar, where it's actually the opposite in my view for these two things. A slower vaccine rollout and a weakening GDP. They actually had a negative quarter last time. So that's why I'd be more interested in trading the euro dollar than the pound dollar, because I like to trade strength against weakness, not strength against strength, if that makes sense. Okay? Couldn't have agreed more, Nick. Thank you very much, Niles. Glad that you agree. Ty says that we call him the Reserve Bank Governor. Okay, thank you for the Australian Reserve Bank Governor. Yeah, everybody has their sort of names for it. Like we have in the U.S., we have the Fed Chairman, Jerome Powell, right? You get different nicknames for different leader or leadership roles. Cool. All right, so let's talk about gold, because I know everybody wants to talk about gold seemingly all the time. Gold is in a really interesting spot, which I mentioned on my Sunday video yesterday. Gold is at this really pivotal spot because we're in this downtrend, and from a technical view, you can kind of see we've got these, here, let me full screen really quick. On this technical view, right, you've got this downtrend where each of these rallies has basically been sold into pretty decisively. And now we are rallying again. So the question is, do we continue the downtrend, sell into the rally once more, or is something changing? Is something, derailing here on the gold market? Well, the biggest thing to watch in my view is inflation, and also what is happening with the US dollar, because a strengthening US dollar would cause this to go down. If you think the US dollar is bullish, then arguably you could make the point that maybe you think the gold market is not going to be as hot. That's one way to look at it, but there is times where the gold market and the US dollar can go up at the same time, so it's not a foolproof look at it. Right? If you were bearish on the US dollar, then one of the best things you could probably do is, if you think it's going down, if you think the US dollar is going down, sell something against the US dollar, right? Sell, or buy something against the US dollar, right? You could buy gold, you could buy the euro, you could buy the pound, whatever you think is a good buy against the US dollar. That's what we're doing here when we cross different markets together. That is the currency exchange. You're exchanging one for the other. So with gold, like I said, I think we're at a pretty key moment where we are in this downtrend, and the question is this downtrend, is it going to continue, or is it going to break out? I want to get some of you guys' feedback really quick on gold. Are you bullish or bearish? Let me know. Let's see what everybody thinks about this one going into this week. I want to hear from you just to see what you guys think. But gold, I think, is really not my favorite one to trade right now. I know a lot of people really love to trade gold, and like to trade just one thing, or just focus on one thing at a time. And I understand that for traders who are maybe just trying to sort of understand one market fully, and I can respect that. But for me right now, gold, if it was my only thing I was trading, I would just be like sitting out of it because I'm not as interested right now. Okay, so very mixed, I'm going to say. It actually looks like when we talked about the US dollar, it seemed like people were just dramatically bullish. But you guys seem to be pretty mixed on the bullish and bearish thesis. For those of you guys reading the chat, drop why you think bullish or bearish. Let me know why you think gold is bullish or bearish. But thank you guys for your feedback. Roxa says bearish because I've held it since last week. Mixed sentiment right now on gold for me. Okay, neutral on the US dollar. Gold neutral. Okay. Thank you guys for your feedback. Now that it helps, I think it helps me just to see what you guys think, but it also might help other people in the audience who want to just see what the crowd is thinking about it as well. So when we are looking at gold, I think that, like, for me, just from a technical view, it's got to be bearish, right? The trend looks down. However, there's talks, for me, it's mixed, because there's talks about more sort of inflation. There's talks about potentially more stimulus here in the US, right? More, helping businesses out, helping people out, right? And so when you have that talks in the work, what does that cost? It costs dollars. You have to print more money to sort of facilitate that. And that could arguably be a cause for inflation. So keeping an eye on that, I think, is another very, very important component. Keep tabs on that when you're looking at gold. If you're more of a swing trader like me, if you're just a day trader, you don't really care about technicals or fundamental, or you just don't care about fundamentals, I personally think it's still worth knowing what's going on. If you're going to be buying gold because it's going straight up or it's going, straight down and you want to jump in somehow, understanding what the catalyst is, what's moving the market is pretty important. But I think for me, just from a technical view, it does look like price wants to come back down to retest this, just because, again, every time this thing has moved up, it's been sold into. Now, that will change at a certain point, but I'm not going to try and call the bottom or assume that it's going to finish until I really see signs. For me to get bullish on gold, I would have to start seeing things sort of breaking structure, right? Because you have all these sellers in play, right? You have sellers there, sellers there, sellers there. All of these levels are areas where sellers are waiting. So in order for me to be bullish, I need to start seeing those sellers basically get beat up a little bit. Because once you start seeing the shift, the change in direction, then some of these resistance levels don't mean so much. But as it stands, these rallies with sellers in control, right? Sellers are definitely in control of this market. They have been for a while. Until that really changes, sellers are going to be looking for opportunities to sort of try and, sell into these markets. So keep an eye on that with gold. For those of you guys who are bulls, just be cautious of that and watch for changes in this sort of sentiment, in my view. That's how I would be a bull if I was a bull. So now there is an argument we put in a double bottom, which is true. But again, for me, a double bottom doesn't mean anything until you really start to see follow through, right? Because you could say, you see a double, you can argue that there's a double bottom plenty of times. Here's a double bottom. You could argue that, or here's a double bottom. And then there was a push lower. So the dominant trend is really what's keeping my focus until it changes and shifts the other direction. Waiting for Nick's prophecy. I don't have any prophecies for you guys. I am not a fortune teller. I don't know the future. And all of my trades are probability based, risk management based. I don't know what's going to happen in the market. I know I have opinions, right? I have probability-based decisions, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be right. I could say I think gold might go down and be completely wrong with gold just skyrocketing tomorrow. And I would get comments on my videos like, "Oh, Nick, see, you're not so smart." And I would say, "Yes, you are right. I get it wrong sometimes. I don't know where every market is going all the time. I'm not a wizard. I'm just a guy." Right? And so I think that's all of us, right? None of us know exactly where this market is going. Sometimes you'll get the cocky players in the market who are like, "Oh yeah, it's certainly doing this. And I told you so. I'm so right all the time." And those people usually end up blowing their accounts and losing all their money because the markets are not nice to people who are egotistical. The markets are not forgiving or nice or not nice to anybody. The markets don't care about our money. The markets are going to do what the markets are going to do. And the only thing we can do is we can adapt and we can manage our risk because you're not going to be right all the time. So it's just something to keep in mind. Let's take a look at another US dollar based one. Since these things are pulling back, let's check out dollar Swiss here, which does seem to be in a really interesting spot. You can see we did put in this top here. We saw price rally real strong back in March and then sort of topped out here, sort of consolidated, and then we started to see some follow through. We did break through, and now we are looking like we may be headed to retest 0.9350. And this is a pretty big one because, again, it's the previous top. So if buyers are going to be continuing this strong rally, they're probably going to want to hold this 93.50 level. So keep an eye on that going into this week. If it dips a little bit further, if you are a bull on the dollar and you're a bear on the Swiss franc, there may be some opportunities to look at that. Now the Swiss franc, in my view, is still a sell. I'm pretty much a bear on the Swiss franc, with them being in Europe and dealing with this whole case spike in Europe, as well as just them being a risk-off currency. In my view, they've even the Swiss National Bank, they're trying to devalue their currency. They're fighting deflation because having a weaker currency is not always bad. In fact, there's purposeful reasons why Australia they're trying to keep their currency, they're actually not raising rates right now, right? They're holding off on raising rates because they want to try and keep that currency weaker, because if they can keep it weaker, it's better for trade, it's better for growth. And a weaker currency, why is it better for growth? Well, let's say that country A, let's say that country A and country B, this is a quick lesson in fundamentals. Let's say that country A has a very expensive currency, right? Very expensive currency. And then we also have a very weak or inexpensive currency in country B. Okay, well, both of these countries produce goods and both of these countries import and export, right? Well, if country A has an expensive currency, they can buy country B's currency. They can buy a lot of country B's exports. And country B has a harder time. Why? Because their currency is weaker. So buying this country's exports is more expensive for them, right? You have to think of, this is what we're doing when we are trading currencies. We're talking about the exchange between different countries, and having a weaker currency is arguably an advantage. There's a reason why China has a weaker currency. They manufacture things and export them around the world for a cheaper price because, again, their currency is weaker, so it's easier for us to buy their goods because it costs us less money, right? Here in the US, if I go buy Chinese goods, it's arguably a little bit more competitive. Now, that changes over time, and there's some big cycles that people talk about in economics that I'm not qualified to teach, but this basic concept I think we can understand. If a country has an expensive currency, it is harder for other countries to buy their goods. If a country has a weaker currency, it is easier for other countries to buy their goods because it costs them less in their own country. If your $1 goes a long way in this country, you can buy their products much easier. And so there's countries that purposefully weaken their currency so that there is a competitive trade advantage, and that more people want to do business with this country, more people want to buy their goods and services, which ultimately in the long term arguably helps their economy. Does that make sense? I hope that you might need to rewatch that if you're new to that concept. It took me a few times to understand it, so I'm not going to try and say it's easy or anything, but that might be helpful to those of you guys who are newer to that concept of, why would you want a weaker currency? Well, the Swiss National Bank has come out and said they want to try and weaken the Swiss franc and fight that deflation because it makes them less competitive in trade. David says, also, how do the fundamentals make you decide which pair to trade? How do you know if two countries' currency is weak or strong together? Well, you just look at the overall growing demand or diminishing demand of a economy based on how much it's growing. If an economy is growing more, if the US is growing at a faster rate, more countries more people want to do business in the US, more people want to move businesses there, they want to buy more goods, they want to, more production happens. That's what makes an economy strong, why people would want to buy a currency. When you buy a currency, you're buying into arguably the economy in a certain place. All right, so let's look at dollar yen as well while we're on the subject of risk-off currencies. So dollar yen is getting a little bit of a pullback, but here, honestly, for me, from a technical view, I'd be more interested if we can get that pullback this week down to 109.5. I've been waiting for it. I've been watching to see if we can get that set up, but we have not quite gotten it yet. It looks like we got a little bit of weakness on the US dollar, but I would need to see a bit more before I get interested in actually taking a trade here on dollar yen. Now, if you guys are new to the stream, I do want to say I do these Monday through Friday. So if you don't want to miss them in the future, make sure to subscribe to the channel. You can also click the bell. That will give you notifications for when I go live if you want to watch more of these in the future. And if you're enjoying the stream right now, do me a favor and like it down below. Looks like we've got about 600 people in here and we got about 120 likes. So if you guys could run that like button up, that would be awesome. I would appreciate it very much. And thank you guys for just hanging out with me and doing analysis with me. So I know I'm missing some of the, I know I'm not reading all the chat, but I'm trying to just get through all these thoughts that I've got going on today. Best quote by Nick is, "I'm not a wizard, I'm a guy." Thank you, Ninja. It's an interesting quote, I guess. But it is, it's true though. None of us are wizards. None of us know what's going to happen in the markets perfectly. There's people out there who claim to know everything and they think they're hot stuff. But the markets will humble anybody who thinks that they're just some sort of all-knowing sniper gang entry perfect trader. It's just not realistic. The reality is the markets are far more complex, and there's so many different variables impacting the movements in markets. We can have a prediction, we can have an opinion, we can have a probability-based decision, but all of that, you have to understand you can still be wrong. There never is a time where you absolutely with 100% certainty know what's going to happen in the markets, because things change. Think about if you were driving on your way to work and then your car broke down, right? And then you were 30 minutes late to work. There was no way for you to know if you were going to make it to work on time with certainty. You might have a fairly good idea that you're going to make it to work on time that day. But if your car breaks down, that's out of your control. And sometimes that happens in markets. You get things that are just all of a sudden they pop up and they change the markets. They change what's going on. Somebody says something or something happens and it really shifts the market. So you have to think, I can't know everything because I'm not some sort of fortune teller. Anyways, CAD yen. CAD yen still pushing higher. Really not much of a pullback here. The CAD is strong today. So that's not super interesting to me. What about dollar Canadian? So dollar Canadian actually getting a little bit of a sell today. And let's talk about this one to see what's going on. For those of you guys who are short-term traders, looking at the 1 hour chart here, we are testing the lows on dollar CAD. I think if price breaks this level, you could get a nice little flush lower. Right now it is acting as support, but if it were to break, for example, you arguably have a move lower inbound. We'll see if that happens, but you've also got resistance up here, so I'm just going to mark some levels on the 1 hour chart for those of you guys who are watching it. And then you also have some resistance here as well. Okay, so the reason that these levels are impactful to me, just from a simple like supply demand or support resistance level, is these levels have sort of caused pivots in the market. So you see price came up, shot back down. Price came up, shot back down. And then of course up here as well. So watching those as potential sell levels if you are a sell biased person on dollar CAD, if price were to come back up to those points. But again, the real big one that's in play is watching to see, hey, is there going to be a breakout today here on dollar CAD to the downside? And if so, where could it head? Well, you've got some pretty strong support here. So if that breaks, it could lead to a nice little rollover here on the dollar CAD. You do have arguably some support here. And you've got, of course, the previous pivot low there on dollar CAD there. So these are two levels if you're watching dollar CAD for sells today. If you're a bear on this and you think that this breakout has potential, well, if you see some sort of break here underneath structure, we don't see it happening just yet, but maybe after stream or some point here in the day, if you see a break to the low side and you're a seller on the dollar CAD, you think it's going down lower, there might be some opportunities to look for something like this. Now, of course, like I say in all of my streams, this is not like financial advice. I'm not here to tell you, oh, go trade this, because I think you should do your own due diligence before you take any trade that you take. But this is something that I would watch for if you are a bear on dollar CAD, is keep an eye on this level today, because it seems like this previous low, I think that's the low of last week. If that breaks, we could be seeing more sell pressure coming into the dollar CAD this week as well. So keep an eye on that. Again, weakening dollar today could roll over and keep going lower. So we'll watch for that. Again, if price breaks this level, I think probably the first place to head would be this 1.2480. So I think that's a pretty, what is that? 80 pips? Nope, about 60. Yeah, so if that were to happen, that's a 60 pip move down to this level. And if this were to come back down to the previous low here, that's 160. So good little move there. Let's look at it from the 4 hour and just see what it looks like. So we can draw this in as well. And this is going to bother me, so let me just extend these out a little bit. Yeah, so that's what I'm watching for this week. If you're a seller on dollar CAD, keep an eye on some of these levels to see if anything comes into mind. But for me, when I'm looking at dollar CAD, it's Interesting that dollar CAD is pulling back today because you've also got oil prices, I believe, down today. Let's look at oil just real quick. Is oil down? Yeah, oil's sort of down today, so arguably that is not as good for the CAD, but again, the dollar is weak as well. So watching that to see, but keep an eye on what happens with oil prices this week. That could impact the CAD, and also, of course, keep an eye on the US dollar. If you're bearish on the US dollar and you're bullish on the CAD, again, when we're talking about currency exchange, I said it earlier in the stream, you got to think from the perspective of like, well, okay, if I'm going to sell the dollar, which would I rather be buying, right? Whenever you're trading a currency pair, you're not just trading one currency, you're trading two. So you have to think, which currency do I think is a bargain against the US dollar, or do I think the US dollar is a bargain against some other currency? You have to think of it that way, right? So if you're newer to fundamentals, if fundamentals are confusing to you, we've got some resources on the site that you can check out for free. You just go to a1trading.com, and there's a bunch of tools here that we've put on the site for you guys. Grab them anytime you want. We also have articles that break stuff down for you, written by Bart and Frank for the most part. There are analyst writers here on the site, so you can read up on what they think. They've got trade ideas and analysis and all sorts of good stuff. So check that out. You've also got the currency heat map, COT reports. In fact, let's look at the COT reports for the US dollar, because I want to see if things have shifted sentiment-wise from big money. Let's go down to non-commercials. We'll take a look here. You can see we've still got sort of a rise in the US dollar. So technically, it looks like from the COT reports, at least since 2021 has started, the US dollar bullishness in terms of hedge funds, smart money, big money, whatever you want to call them, is still tending to the upside. So we'll see if that remains, or if we get any sort of shift by the end of the week when we get the next COT report data release. Again, you can grab this information anytime you want off of our website. Any of these things, you can look at the S&P, you can look at gold, you can look at Bitcoin, you can look at treasury notes, whatever you want to look at in terms of COT reports. I won't spend too much time on this because you can go read this at your own leisure, but this will tell you sort of what big money is up to, what smart money is up to, if you care to see that. You can also see the retail sentiment. Let's take a look at dollar CAD, for example, while we're here. This is, again, another thing on the site. We can go to dollar CAD. There it is. Dollar CAD is pretty mixed. You've got 48% of retail traders think it's going lower, and then you've got 51% of retail traders thinking it's going higher. So sort of mixed sentiment there on dollar CAD, with some of the more extremes being people going long on euro dollar. People seem to be very long biased on that, very short biased on the pound, very bullish on the dollar, bearish on the dollar yen, bearish on the pound yen. So again, this might be valuable information to you, and you can get it anytime you want. Just bookmark our website, a1trading.com. Okay, let's see what else we can get ourselves into in terms of currency pairs. Speaking of pound yen, what's pound yen doing today? And look at that, pound yen still hovering at the highs here. This is a multi-month high on pound yen. In fact, probably multi-year even. So back in, we haven't been this high since 2018. Yeah, so pound yen seems like it just wants to keep running. Look at how many bullish green candles there have been in a row on this currency pair. I know that this one has been a troublesome one for some of the traders out there who have been trying to short it. On the streams, we've been mostly bullish on this thing. We haven't really taken any sell trades, or at least I haven't taken any sell trades on this thing any time recently. So for me, you know, when it comes to strength like this, I'm not one to sort of try and jump in and call a top. I have tried that in the past. I've had mixed. I think there is possible ways to trade reversals and trade tops and bottoms. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I think it is much harder personally than trading with trends, going with dominant energy in the market. And for me, I'm not a genius, right? So I don't want to. I want to trade the easiest thing that I can trade, which to me is going with trends and using all the tools that I have at my disposal, right? Looking at what retail traders think, looking at the COT reports, looking at the fundamentals, and looking at technical analysis all at the same time, sort of incorporating everything that I have into my trades. Now, when it comes to pound yen, I'm bullish on this pair, but I can't chase it. So I don't want to buy it up here. I'd rather buy it at a pullback. I tried to buy it here. I got stopped out. Didn't do so hot there, but then I did pretty decently on a similar pair, NZD JPY. Caught a really nice trade at the bottom here, sold out here, and then I actually ended up buying Aussie yen, which is a trade that I'm in right now, for the pullback here. So bought the pullback after that sort of dip on the yen. This is all based on my yen bearish thesis that I've had recently, which has come from fundamentals and the COT reports dominantly. So again, by the way, for those of you guys who are not familiar, any trade that I take, I share inside of our private group. We have a Discord that I share like my trades. Like I'll show the charts. I'll write up everything that I have in terms of why I took the trade. Again, my Aussie yen, New Zealand yen, and pound yen, all three of those trades were all based on a fundamental basis and then looking for technical entries. And I share all of that inside of the group for members. There's a promo code down below in the description for those of you guys who are interested in joining our group. You can see all the trades that I take, like I said. And if you have any interest in joining that, there's a community. We do live webinars. We do all sorts of stuff. So check it out. You can read up more about it if you are interested down below in the description. Dave just shared a link in the chat. I'll go ahead and pin that message. We'll just put that right there. For those of you guys who are interested, like I said, you can click the link down below in the description, or you can click the link that I just pinned to the chat room that Dave just helped us. Thank you, Dave, for that. Yes, so if you have any interest there, check it out. But Aussie yen seems to be working out nicely here. I still think that it has room to go up to this previous high. We will see. I've got my stop locked in at break even, and from here, it's just a trade where I either make some good money or I go away with break even, which I'm fine with either way. I've had some really good trades recently, and so we'll see if we can keep the streak running, or if things are gonna turn sour here on me. But either ways, it's okay. I think we've got we've captured some pretty good moves on this yen sell-off recently. Because again, we're buying things against the yen. So we've been buying the Aussie, been buying the pound, buying the New Zealand. I've just been everything short the yen recently, and that's been working out really well. Until things shift, I'll continue to sort of have that trade in motion. So we'll see how it goes from there. But again, I reiterated on my Sunday special, or my Sunday stream or Sunday analysis that I did, that my yen bearishness has not changed and probably won't change until something really changes in terms of the fundamental outlook. So yeah, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. For those of you guys who are members, keep an eye on my Aussie yen trade. If you're part of this, or you decided to take your own trade, keep an eye on the community, because I probably will be making some updates about that shortly after stream if I decide to trail stops further, and so on and so forth. All right, so let's see, what else do we have to talk about? We talked about euro dollar, we talked about pound dollar, gold. I'm losing track of all the ones we've looked at. What about pound Swiss? Pound Swiss also pulling back here a little bit today, but nothing too major. Pound Aussie. Pound Aussie sort of pulling back, sort of flat right now. Pound Canadian probably moving today. Moving up a little bit off of the lows there. Interesting stuff. Well, I think you guys, for the most part, that wraps up most of the stuff that I wanted to get done today, and most of the charts that I wanted to look at. Again, you can tune into these streams Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern. I do these just sharing my thoughts and my analysis. So if you have any interest in being a part of those, then of course, feel free to come back anytime. We started about 43 minutes ago for those of you guys who are live with me. Just keep in mind what time that was for you, and you can come back anytime and watch with me and hang out with me and do your analysis alongside my own chart. So thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Happy trading. Be careful out there, and we'll see you back next time.
What's up, you guys? I'm so excited to announce that TradingView is going to be sponsoring our content here on YouTube. TradingView.com offers a wide range of trading software and charting tools, and they are my #1 favorite place for everything charts. I've been using them for myself for years, so it's very easy for me to get behind TradingView.com. On top of all of their fantastic charting software, they also have a vibrant community of traders with millions of active users. You can join in on some of the conversations going on there, as well as access some of the research and ideas being shared by fellow members. Whether you use Bollinger Bands, using moving averages, or pattern trading, whatever you do, TradingView has so many different tools, and even the ability to program your own custom tools right inside of their platform. One of my favorite things about TradingView personally is that I can take my laptop anywhere I want, I can access my TradingView.com account, and then I can log into it from my phone or a different computer and still have all of my charts loaded, which is fantastic and super convenient for being in different places like myself, where I have different charts that I am looking at. Recently, some of the nice people over at TradingView set me up with a pro version of their platform, and it is fantastic. I encourage you though, if you haven't already signed up for a TradingView account, sign up for one for free. There's a link down below in the description to try it out. And hey, if you really like it, try out their pro version. They're supporting the content that you guys see here and making it all possible. So a big shout out to TradingView, and go check them out if you haven't already.